We have Ichabod Crane coming back from the dead. We have Sherlock Holmes. There's a detective story about a woman who never forgets anything. She remembers everything that she sees and hears. She has this heightened power that gives her an ability. Remember House. He is this super sleuth doctor detective that if there's some bizarre disease out there, House always has the way of figuring it out and healing the disease. That's why he's rendered this way. Because the whole idea of the Antichrist, the great work, the secret doctrine, is that he is going to be a cure for all of man's diseases. Hence, bringing mankind to immortality. That's exactly what the devil promised in the Garden of Eden. Man's immortality. You shall never die. You shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So we have the comic book character of the Flash, who was modeled exactly after Mercury. The wings, the speed that he has, the lightning bolt on his chest. Jesus said, I saw Satan fall from heaven as a bolt of lightning. We have the god Thor. Thor, whose hammer gives him his power, and he's able to conquer all of his enemies with his superhero powers. He is a god. He is a son of the gods. In the rendering that Marvel made of him, he is the son of Odin. Odin is what we get Wednesday. You ever wonder why Wednesday was spelled the way it was? It's the god Odin. And so Thor is the son of the gods, Odin, and he has his superhero hammer that only he has the ability to pick up and use. Only he can wield the sacred hammer. It's sort of like the key into the Fortress of Solitude or Goliath's spearhead. Only Goliath can pick that thing up. Do you remember watching the movie The Avengers? Of course you watched it. Everybody did. You went to see The Avengers, and you remember the scene where Thor was fighting with the Hulk. And the Hulk was getting the best of him, so Thor decided to throw his hammer, and the Hulk went after it. And the Hulk, who can do anything, cannot pick up the hammer. Did you remember that scene? That's why. Because the idea is that only Thor has the right to use the hammer. He has all power. Not even Hulk can pick it up. And so Thor just goes like that, and the hammer comes to him. Like the Jedi who do that with their lightsaber. Okay? Thor's hammer. I noted that in the movie Thor, his hammer had this character on it. Let's see here. It's called a triquetra. And it represents, it's sort of related to what we saw a while ago, the caduceus, where you have two strands of DNA and then one rising out of it. It's basically a symbol for immortality or rebirth. There it is on the New King James Version of the Bible. Here it is. You've seen me use this before. The Aquarian conspiracy, same symbol. What it represents is that mankind is going to be a god by means of what this symbol represents. The champion's going to rise up out of us and turn us all into immortals. It's going to heal all of our diseases. Do you believe that? That's what they teach. That's what the devil promised Eve in the Garden of Eden. Now, here's the thing. Thor is one of these gods who dies, is buried on the earth, and then he's resurrected to save the world. Actually, he has more power after his resurrection than he does before he's died and buried. Now I want you to remember that, and remember that theme, because we're going to see it again. Here's what Manly Hall. Manly Hall went through all of the earth's myths, their ideas. He studied the mighty men of old, men of renown. He came to the conclusion that just about every civilization on the earth and all of their stories and myths and legends were all basically teaching one secret doctrine. It was given different names because at the Tower of Babel, God scattered everybody and thence scattered their ideas of who this secret was all about. So he's given the name of Thor here, Apollo here, Dionysus here, Odin somewhere else or whatever. He's given these different names. Isis and Diana and Ashtaroth is the name of the goddess. But it's the same concept and the same idea. And it has to do with man's ability to become a god. That's what the secret doctrine is. So Manly Hall writes about Thor. He swings his mighty hammer in the fields of space, sets the primordial atoms in motion, and establishes order out of chaos. Have you ever seen that? First thing I think of when I see that, you remember the TV show Get Smart. Okay? It was a comedy based upon what was popular back during the Cold War days of the 60s, was the Americans against the Russians and the spy agencies. And so Maxwell Smart, who ascended out of the ground in the underground bunker, sort of like here, he is smart, and of course he's got like the first cell phone in his shoe. We thought, man, that's amazing. Okay. Anyway, he works for the order called Control. The bad guys work for chaos. You see the ideas here? He establishes order out of chaos, or control out of chaos. Here in Morals and Dogma, you have it here. You see the emblem here, Ordo ab chaos. See the eagle with two heads? He's the fusion of opposites. See the crown? See the illumination above it? Ordo ab chaos. When I found out what that really means, everybody says, what's order out of chaos? What does chaos mean? Well, it means, like your desk is messy. The Greek word chaos, pit, that's what it means. So Masonry, the secret doctrines, Thor, the superheroes, they're going to bring order, and it's going to come out of the pit. I want you to think about that. The guy who was originally tapped to write the screenplay for the movie Thor, and it was revised after he did what he did with it, April 2006, screenwriter and Thor fan Mark Protasevich wrote a script for the film which he described as, quote, an Old Testament God who becomes a New Testament God. Stop right here. Christ, the Bible specifically says Christ was the Lord of the Old Testament. Christ came, He is God in the flesh. He came made under the law. He was made of the law. Christ was the law that was against us. And He dies, and now He is more powerful now that He has been resurrected than He was in His old life. You see, the law was in force, but it could not make man perfect. That's what the law couldn't do. The Old Testament. Anybody follows the Old Testament, well, you got to live right and keep the Ten Commandments. Nobody does it. The Ten Commandments tell you what's wrong, but the Ten Commandments do not give you the power to stop doing what's wrong. So after Christ dies and fulfills the Old Testament, now He's resurrected. Now all power has been given unto me unto heaven and earth. That's what He said. Now He sits at the right hand of the Father, and He is with the Father, interceding. Now He's more powerful than He was when He died. Does that ring a bell to anybody? That's what the guy said. It's about a guy, an Old Testament God, who becomes a New Testament God. That's the guy that wrote it. Where did that come from? Are these guys atheists that don't believe in anything spiritual whatsoever, that just they laugh at Egyptology and mythology? No. These are students of the arcane religions, the secret mystery doctrines. And they know exactly what they're doing. It's like, who's the lady that wrote Harry Potter? How did she come up with all that stuff? She either studied it and knew what she was talking about and was a witch, or it was inspired to her. I think it's probably a combination of the both. Let's look at the aquatic gods. And we're dealing with gods of mythology, gods of old, men of renown. We have King Neptune. Stop right here. Percy Jackson, this character in these movies now, in these children's novels, finds out that his father is Neptune. And if you remember, Percy Jackson, I have only seen the first 10 minutes of Percy Jackson. The first 2 minutes of the movie, you see this boy sitting at the bottom of the pool. He's just sitting there. And then they show him rising up out of the water. And they were talking to him, Percy, you know what? I just like being underwater. It's the beast that rises up out of the sea, a son of the gods. That's who Perseus Jackson is. He's the son of Neptune. Neptune has the trident, and the trident is basically, essentially, this symbol. It's like the 3 degrees in the Blue Lodge. It's the trident. It's the triquetra, or the triskela, or the priest giving you the 3 fingers. Okay? He's showing you what's to come. The trident is a symbol of immortality or godhood, eternal life. You have Dagon, the fish god. Actually, he's half human and half fish. In the book of Judges, they worshipped him. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. For they said, Our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, Our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. How many superhero movies, books, comic books, cartoons have this same idea? We have this evil person who's trying to take over the world, and then we have our superhero, our God, who saves us. And in this case, he was Dagon, half human, half fish. We find in 1 Samuel chapter 5 that the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And they have Ashdod. Ashdod was a land of giants. Arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left him. Now I want you to see this, all right? The head of Dagon was the fish part. The stump of him was the human part. The God part of him was destroyed. But it awaits resurrection. It's still in the stump, like the trunk of the tree, or hidden inside the pine tree, or the casket of Osiris, or whatever it is. It's all the same concept. That God is latent. He awaits resurrection one of these days. The idea of Dagon, I've talked about this before, the Catholic priests who wear the Dagon fish heads. Go back to this old graphic here. See the miters? That's what Catholic priests and bishops and popes wear to this day. Their religion is the religion of Dagon. Half sea creature, half human. They're Merovingian kings of the Da Vinci Code and all of these other things. The Merovingian from The Matrix. These are all modeled after King Merove, whose birth was from a human woman and a Leviathan, a sea creature, a god, mating with a human woman, producing these fleur-de-lis bearing kings. The fleur-de-lis is like the trident. It's like the triquetra. It's something rising up out of the middle of the two.